Hello, my name is CurryFanGSW1, and this is my first YouTube video. I'm a huge Golden State Warriors fan, and my passion is talking basketball, so I thought I'd make a YouTube channel where I could talk about that and, be productive. The Golden State Warriors have just been eliminated last night by the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games in the semifinals, and it was emotional for many reasons. Obviously, getting eliminated is never fun, but it's also a big what if. Steph was going to come back in game 6. You couldn't win any of the 3 games or any of the 4 games without Stephen. And it's heartbreaking because that was a really good chance for us. You like your odds with Denver, OKC, and with the Cavs already eliminated, the Celtics about to be eliminated. You never know. And it's just a big what if, but you cannot dawn on the past anymore. It's what's done is done. Can't dwell on that anymore. And it's all about the off season. But before we get to the off season, this video I want is to be a kind of like a season recap. The goods, the bads, the ugly stuff, the pretty stuff, all that stuff. So let's just dive into some of the bad stuff. Let's start with the bad. We'll end the video off on a good note. Some bad stuff that we saw early in the year was Steph Curry did not have a second option. And while early in the year that was fine, because the Warriors were 12-3, and we had like Buddy Hield stepping up, you had D'Anthony Melton, you had Lindy Waters play good, GP2, Kuminga, Pods, all these guys were contributing early in the year to help Steph. That was fine. But you look, especially in games like um, the Cavs smoked us blowouts twice because when you don't have a second option, they lock up that. It's just Steph Curry out there. But the Warriors, they were very inconsistent this year, at least until the trade deadline. Even when they won 12-3, there were games where they won where you're like, they really should not have won, especially the Stunner game that you're seeing now here. They blew a 30-point lead. They had a 30-point lead heading into the fourth quarter, and it was a 7-point game. Um, Another thing is it's very interesting to see what they're going to do with Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga started off the year really rough, wasn't really in the rotation as much. Then he really found his stride in December and January. Then obviously he got hurt, and he missed 3 months basically. So he was never really the same after that, at least until the playoffs where he really contributed in the second round. Um, Now let's talk about the good stuff. Now obviously Jimmy Butler traded to the Warriors changed the entire season. But before the trade deadline, let's talk about some good stuff. Because I want February 8th till the end of the year to be its own separate topic. The Warriors started off really hot. They showed potential. They had Steph, Melton, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney, Trace, all those guys. And they had Quinton Post, who didn't play at all until late January. But, a guy who they saw, hey, if needed. They had guys like Lindy Waters who were stepping up. Draymond was locking down Zion in clutch games without Stephen. So it was really interesting to see. And then you go 12-3. This game happens, and the Warriors blow a 17-point lead to the Spurs, and the spiral started there. They went 13-23 in their next 36 games, and they were 25-26. That was it. After 12-3 start, there was no good in the season. We were dead in the water. But then we trade for Jimmy Butler. We trade for him on February 5th. We lose to the Jazz. We lose to the Lakers on that back-to-back. But that was it. After that, our season changed for the rest of the year, going 23-8 in that span. With, you had statement wins. You had statement wins against the Lakers, statement wins against, the Rockets, who were the 2 seed at that time. You beat Dallas when they still had Kyrie and Clay. Obviously, Kyrie suffered his ACL, but they didn't have Luke at that point. And a lot of people were saying, oh well, they were playing bad teams because yes, the Warriors had an easier schedule than some other teams in the NBA, but they played a lot of the harder teams early in the year. That's what happens. They had one of the hardest schedules to start the year, so that's what happens. So they go 23-8. You have wins over the Lakers. You have wins over the Grizzlies. Wins over the Nuggets. You beat the Nuggets for the first time in 3 years with the help of Jimmy Butler. And Buddy Hield found his stride after struggling for a lot of December and January. Kuminga was out of the rotation, but the Warriors were still fine. They went on 7-game win streaks, 5-game win streaks, 5-game win streaks. And, when you lose 8 games in a 30-game stretch, that's contending. That's contender level right there. And the Warriors were playing at a contender level, but they fell into the play-in tournament. And they did beat the Grizzlies, and some of that you could say helped because you got a favorable matchup against the Rockets instead of the Lakers. I didn't care. At least I did not care. I know other people probably cared and they were happy about it, but I knew that the Warriors were capable of beating any team in the Western Conference, whether that was the Lakers, whether that was the Thunder if they got the 8th seed. I was confident in the Warriors' ability to win any game. And they go up 3-1 against Houston, obviously, and then they start trolling a little bit. They have to troll, win a game 7, and obviously Steph goes down, and that was all she wrote. But there's a lot of positives that you can take into the consideration here. Kuminga is probably going to be gone this summer. They are looking at there's a report today that said they were looking at sign and trade possibilities this summer. But there's other things you can do this summer to really help and make sure that you can retool the roster because it's going to be built around Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. Everybody else is really on the table. Whether it's Buddy, whether it's Looney, whether it's Trace Jackson Davis, whether it's GP2, whether it is Kuminga who does get traded, whether it's a Moody, Podziemski, everyone is on the table to try to make this team better. And like Steph, Steve, and Dre said it, and Jimmy, there's a 2-year window right now. It's this year and next year. There's 2 years left on the contracts. Most likely the final 2 years of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler's careers. So it's all about how do we capitalize, try to get one more championship out of it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And, I'm excited. I think that we have a great team. And I don't think there's anything really stopping us from winning another championship as long as we play our cards right and, believe in each other. And this team believes in himself. And I think that's all we really ask for. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this type of content, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video. Peace.